Hi everybody, Rock Dude here.
And Marky Z, and welcome to another awesome episode of the Rockin' House. Today we got a special guest. You all know him from the area. Another Philadelphia artist that rose to fame. Brian Quinn is here with us today. Brian Quinn, you probably know him from back in the day with Octane. Been all over 94 YSP, toured with many national artists, Judas Priest being one of them. You probably know some of the bands he played, members he played with, like Greg Tripp, Bobby Peerless, and of course he went into Foster Child with Danny Beazle, and then now 14, 15 years he's in the mega star band Candlebox. Rock Dude.
Yeah, so me coming from photography background and Mark coming from a musician's background, we've been involved with the local music community for years, and seeing Brian grow from the beginning in his bands, like we had said, Foster Child and Octane, and now he's in the mega band from Seattle called Candlebox as the newest member of the band. Been quite a few years in the Candlebox lineup now. So yeah, Brian's still the same guy you knew from all them years ago, the coolest guy you want to hang out with. He still plays in the mom and pop bar, and every Wednesday, for example, you can see him up here at the Bridgeport Rip House doing an acoustic show. And sometimes he teams up and does a double show up there with the Paul Hammond of the Led Zeppelin tribute band, Get the Lead Out. And in addition, I want to reach out to Adam Ferraioli for being a big show and a fan. We're all connected together, and over the years, Brian had played with Adam in several different bands over the years. So thanks, Adam, for being...
Thanks, Adam. We appreciate your support, brother. Absolutely.
So what do you think, Mark?
I said we bring on Brian Quinn and let him tell a story.
Yeah,
to his rise to fame. What do you think?
Yeah.
Let's bring on Brian Quinn right now. Welcome, Brian Quinn, to the Rockin' House, brother. All right, this is Marky Z. I'm here with my partner, Rock Dude, in another awesome episode of the Rockin' House. I got Brian Quinn live with us today from Candlebox. You also may know him from Octane from back in the day and Foster Child. Brian, it's awesome to have you on the Rockin' House today, brother. How you doing, man?
Yeah, good, man. Good. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate having you as well, since we've also old friends from years ago as musicians, and we're all like one big community. But, you know, I want to start this show with, let's tell people about Brian Quinn. Like, how did Brian become the guitar player he is today? Who influenced him to be that guitar player?
Well, I started playing when I was 6. I just picked it up. Both my brothers were really into music and into rock and roll. They were both musicians.
Nice.
My oldest brother, he was playing guitar for a bit. I had a band, was goofing around with a couple bands here and there, and then he decided not to pursue it. And my other brother, my next oldest brother, Mickey, was a drummer, and he had a band in high school. And both my brothers are quite a bit older than me.
Okay.
So my next closest brother in age, Mickey, was he's like 6 years older than me, and he had a band in high school when I was, the annoying little brother, and they would rehearse in my parents' basement. And like I said, I was an annoying little brother and would go downstairs and ask him questions. And at the time, he had, two of the most badass players in the area where I grew up, in between Scranton and Wilkes-Barre.
Nice.
And these two guys were just monster players, and it was kind of a thing in the area that those two were actually in the same band together, because they had played in separate bands. Then my brother got them together in the same band, and their band was killer. They were called... So I would just, sit downstairs and watch those guys rehearse and ask them a million questions, and just got really interested in it. I mean, this is in the mid-'80s, so, all the hair metal stuff was huge. Van Halen was, like, at their apex.
Right.
Randy Rhoads was still, a monster player. I mean, he had passed away by then, but he was still, his mark was still pretty fresh on the metal scene.
Nice.
So, I got into all that stuff. So my brother Mickey was really into Led Zeppelin and The Doors and Sabbath and, Bad Company, like all type stuff like that, just great 70s era rock. Kiss.
Yep.
And my oldest brother was into like Supertramp and Journey and Jay Giles band,
Okay.
and he was into Kiss as well. And we had all the vinyls, all the Kiss vinyls. So I used to just pour over that stuff, man. As a little kid, I had my head buried in the Kiss Alive 2 vinyl.
Right.
I remember, like, I knew who the guys were that were driving the truck and the riggers and all the, you know what I mean? All the stuff, all the info on the inside of the album jacket. So that kind of really started me out. And then I picked on, I would sneak into my brother's room and play his guitar while he was at school. And then, you know, he'd come home and beat the shit out of me for playing his guitar. But it stuck, man. I picked that thing up. And initially, I'm predominantly left-handed. So initially I was picking his guitar up and playing it upside down. And I started taking lessons when I was 8, and by the time I went to take lessons, they had switched me around to play right-handed. So that's why I play right-handed guitar now.
That's amazing, Brian. You know, I have to tell you, I'm also a left-hander, and I play my instrument right. And the reason why is it was expensive to go buy a left-handed guitar, so I just taught myself, and now here I am 30-something years later, and I've been doing it forever. That's so funny, huh? Very awesome.
Very similar, man. Same thing happened. So when I went in for lessons, they were like, "What kind of guitar do you want when you get older?" I was like, "A Les Paul." And the guy that was running the music store told my mom, he was like, "Well, if he's really into Les Pauls, left-handed Les Pauls are double the price of right-handed ones." So, and I'm lucky enough to be ambidextrous. Yeah. So, you know, I write right-handed, but I throw left-handed and bat left-handed.
All right.
I'm kind of an anomaly. I have to eat with a fork with my left hand, but I have to eat with a spoon with my right hand, and I can't switch them.
That's funny, man.
Which is kind of odd, but I am true ambidextrous, so I can still play a little bit lefty, like not shred out or anything, but I can play chords and stuff.
That's great. I can't play nothing on my left hand. Forget it. In the right,
really?
Forget it. I'm all over it. It's just weird. It is what it is.
You know, kind of the funny thing too is like it makes sense though, because being you're predominantly left-handed, playing right-handed guitar, your left hand is doing the work when you're playing right-handed. You know, so
that's a good point.
It kind of makes sense.
It does.
You know, after a little while, it's like, well, I'm predominantly left-handed. That does all the work anyhow. So
yeah. Well, let's go to this. That's interesting. You're influenced by, like, all of us. You know, we're about the same age and this and that. I'm influenced the same bands. Kiss was one of the big ones at 6 years old for me. And then if there's other bands as well. And I have a tribute to Dio, Black Sabbath. So, yeah, we all definitely all are totally in that same genre of what we like and why we became musicians. Now let's go on to, like, how you got involved from being a musician, you know, getting later on in years. And you got into Octane. How did that happen? And you met with one of the most influential drummers in the tri-state area, Bobby Peerless, that you played with for years in bands.
Yeah, yep.
Great guy.
So, my journey was kind of a little odd, man. So I grew up in the Scranton, Wilkes-Barre area. I grew up in a town called Pittston.
Okay.
And when I guess maybe when I was about 13 or 14 years old, I was really into skateboarding and snowboarding at that time. And all my buddies were listening to punk music and hardcore music.
Right.
And so, like, we just started a band, and we started playing hardcore music.
Nice.
You know, like Fugazi and Agnostic Front and Murphy's Law, Gorilla Biscuits, like all that type stuff was what we were listening to. Danzig at the time, obviously the Misfits, but they were more punk. But, like, that punk and hardcore scene kind of went hand in hand with one another, and we just started a band and just started making noise, and we were terrible. And but as it went on, you know, I was in and out of a bunch of bands from the time I was like maybe 14 until I was 17.
Right.
And my last band that I had we mixed hardcore and death metal, and that band was called Burial Ground. And we had gotten a lot of label interest from Revelation Records, which was like, you know, the pinnacle for a hardcore band.
Okay.
Revelation and Roadrunner Records, because that's who Biohazard was with at the time.
Yep.
But Roadrunner ended up becoming very popular because they had signed Nickelback and they became massive. But prior to that, Roadrunner was a predominantly hardcore band label.
Right.
So, and Revelation was run by the guitar player from Youth of Today, which was one of our favorite, you know, one of our big influence, one of our biggest influences, you know. So when I had Burial Ground, it was cool to you know, have that label interest, and we ended up doing a development deal with them. and I was about 16 at the time.
Wow. Okay.
And then I decided to go to college. I wanted to get a college education. I moved to Philly, and that was in '94.
Okay.
So went to school at Westchester, graduated. I was a classical guitar major there for 2 years.
Nice.
Switched off that, and then anyway, fast forward, I graduated in '99. I started working at Tower Records on the Boulevard.
Yeah. Okay.
So I could meet, and really it was kind of, I guess it was tactical on my part. I got a job there because I wanted to meet label people, and I knew that the label guys would come in.
Makes sense.
Yeah. They would come in and try to hawk their new bands.
Yeah.
So that we would carry them in the store. So through that experience, I met a lot of label people, and I was handling all of the original music consignments. So all the great original bands at the time, in and around Philly and Jersey and Delaware, I handled all the tri-state original music.
Okay.
So they would come in, guys from bands would come in and give me their CDs. I'd be like, yeah, this is awesome, this is cool, yeah, let's get it in here. So, we'd have to kind of pick and choose stuff. And a label friend of mine from Universal had introduced me to some A&R people. He's like, man, you got a really good ear for some of these bands that I actually had even passed on to him. It was like, man, this is a really good local band. That's a really good local band. And he was like, do you have your own? And I was like, yeah, at the time I kind of did. I had a band called Visiting Blackhand with Mike Evelander and a drummer friend of ours. And, but, that I did get some label contacts through that. And then a friend of mine was coming in, and at the time there was no downloading.
Right.
So friends of mine from the cover scene were coming into Tower Records, and they were buying stacks of CDs this big. So I was giving them my employee discount.
Okay.
And one of the guys that came in was the bass player from a band called Speed. If you remember those guys, they were a pretty popular cover band back in the mid-'90s, late '90s.
Yes.
And he introduced me to Brian Bortnick. And
Okay.
Brian and I, hit it off immediately. We had a couple talks. I said to Brian that I wanted, if we were going to do something and get in on everybody making so much money in the cover market in Philadelphia, I said to him, I was like, but I want to do something different, man. I'm a metalhead. I want to play metal, and let's go out and try it. And he was like, man, I don't know if our booking agent is going to be down with that. And I was like, well, that's what I want to do, and there's nothing like it down here. And we put that together.
Yeah.
And immediately, from Jump Street, started writing, because I was more into original music than I was cover music.
Okay.
And I started writing from Jump Street, man, and it hit. It just worked. So we had this whole audience of people that would never go to a club on Friday night to hear, the top 40 band, but they would come out and hear the metal that we were doing, because we were doing, Pantera, AC/DC, Slayer, like just all the shit that we loved growing up with. And it worked. And we were writing kind of in that ilk of that type of music.
Right.
So we were peppering in original tunes, and people were like, yo, what song was that? Was that Seven Dust, or was that Godsmack, or what song was that? We're like, no, that was us, bro. And that's kind of how Octane really got popular.
I was gonna say that's when Octane was born. That's how it started.
Yeah,
Wow, that's amazing. Well, you know what? We're gonna come back and just a moment before I get into that. Awesome. All the way to the guy in the Candlebox in a minute. Quinn of Candlebox, lead guitar player extraordinaire here. And again, Bri, thanks for being on the show. Wow,
man,
that's pretty
pleasure.
interesting, the first segment already. What you just
Yeah.
had to say and how Octane was born. So now we know Octane's pretty popular. We've seen Octane. I know you guys even done some shows, because I know Greg Tripp really well as well,
Yeah.
and Bobby, the drummer, Perilous. I think he spells it pronounced it Perillis. Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Bobby Perillis, yeah.
Saying it right. Okay, great.
One of the best out there, man.
Oh, I love Bobby. Bobby's a great guy, great drummer, great attitude, and great person altogether, just like you. And you know, you went into this other band called Foster Child, right? So from Octane, we went into another band, Foster Child, and I got to see you a couple times at Tom and Jerry's. Phenomenal. Danny Beazle, you know, he's fronting the band. Of course, you had, I believe, Bobby was in the band with you as well on the drums. Let's talk a little bit about how Foster Child went from there, and then how you got the deal to get into Candlebox.
So, so Octane ended up having a great run, man. You know, we just got to a point where I felt, I kind of felt like I was on an island a bit, because we were making so much money playing cover music and selling our CDs. We were making original music as well.
Nice.
And the CD was selling great. And we got to a point where it was like, we need to either buy a tour bus or buy an RV and get in it and go and not make money anymore. Like, we could come back and make money playing covers,
right,
but we need to start branching out a little bit.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because if not, we're just going to spin our wheels in Philly.
Right.
I mean, I wasn't satisfied being the biggest band in Philadelphia. I wanted to be a big band everywhere, or even a starter band somewhere, right?
Yep.
So, you know, we just weren't on the same page, and it got to the point where I was like, I felt like I was spinning my wheels. I was making the most money I've ever made in my life at that point, and I just kind of upped and told those guys, I'm out. I'm just going to go. I want to start an original thing if we're not going to go out and give this the shot that it deserves.
Right. You know? Understand.
So I did that. I picked up. I kind of left all that money behind. People thought I was nuts. I thought I was nuts. But I had met, at that point I had met, we had done some opening dates for Fuel, and Kevin Miller, who was playing drums with Fuel at the time, would come out and see Octane when we would play up in Allentown, because he's from that area, he's up in the Lehigh Valley.
Gotcha.
So Kevin and I became friends, and he hit me up. He was like, yo, I hear you're thinking about, you know, jumping ship from Octane. You know, would you be interested in starting something up? And I was like, yeah, of course. He was like, do you know anybody? And I was like, I have a bass player and I have a singer. I was like, I know, like, they're the guys. Right. So I started Foster Child with Kevin Miller from Fuel. Okay. And I brought in Danny Beisel on vocals, and then my buddy Eric Lenhart on bass. Outstanding musician, singer, and bass player. He's from up in Central Jersey, up near like Sayreville area. He knew all the Skid Row guys and Bon Jovi guys. And at the time, he was roommates with JD from Black Label Society.
Nice. Okay.
So that was how he had the whole hookup with Zach and those guys.
Awesome.
And we, you know, ended up doing a lot of shows with those guys and just becoming very good friends with them. So when Foster Child started, it was myself, Danny Beisel, Kevin Miller from Fuel, and Eric Lenhart. That was the original lineup.
Right.
So we played together for about maybe a year and a half, and we ended up signing a record contract with a subsidiary of Warner Brothers. We sent them the demos. And it was the subsidiary was run by a guy named Jeff Hansen, who at the time was managing Creed. He had sold. He was a part owner of Floyd's Music Shop in Tallahassee, and sold out of that to manage Creed. And Creed was at their apex at this point.
Right. Yeah.
They were massive. So he started a label under the Warner Brothers umbrella. We were the first band to sign to that label. Nice. And then very shortly after that, Candlebox was signed to that label because they had just recently left Maverick.
Right.
So at that time, I guess fast forward a little bit, we signed our record contract, made our record, went out on the road, and we were doing a label showcase for the Warner Brothers higher-ups in Manhattan.
Nice.
And we were very friendly with Scott Weiland from Stone Temple Pilots, and Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses. Those guys, nice. and Brett Scallions from Fuel, they all went in and bought went in on a club in Manhattan, and we had a label showcase there for all the Warner Brothers brass.
Nice.
And it was Candlebox, It was a Candlebox acoustic duo. It was Pete and Kevin. Pete, the original guitar player, and Kevin did an acoustic thing, and then Foster Child full band and Tantric full band.
Oh, yeah,
because
okay.
Tantric had signed to the Warner Brothers subsidiary. So we did a label showcase, and I met Kevin Martin that night. He saw Foster Child set, and he was like, "Oh my God, who the hell is that guitar player and singer?" Talking about me and Danny. He's like, "I want to meet those guys," and he had his assistant bring us over to his table. We ended up sitting there all night with them and hanging out and drinking. And I think me and him went out. I was out until like maybe 7 or 8 in the morning the next day after the showcase.
Yep.
Just drinking with Kevin, hitting all like my favorite spots in Manhattan, all his favorite spots. And we just became friends and stayed in touch.
Wow.
And Kevin was doing a side project. He had a break from Candlebox and started a side project with Morgan Rose from Seven Dust, the drummer,
Nice.
who's another outstanding musician, on top of being just an outrageously talented drummer.
Oh, yeah, Seven Dust, great.
He plays everything, man. That guy
Nice.
is unbelievable.
Nice.
Unbelievable. Like, people don't know the half of how good that guy is. So,
Wow.
Kevin started a side project with him called Le Projet, and had called me in December of like 2014.
Okay.
He was like, "Hey man, my buddies from Live, the band Live, they have a beautiful studio out in New York, Pennsylvania." He said, could you come out and do a session for me?" So I was like, yeah. He really didn't give me much information about it, but he was like, "I'd like you to come out, and I'd love for you to come out and play a couple solos for me."
Right.
So, yeah, sure. So I knew it wasn't Candlebox, but I didn't know what it was.
Right.
So I drove out to York on a Monday. I had to be back in Philly to do a guest bartending charity event at the Rib House in Bridgeport.
Nice.
So I rolled out to York. I took my guitar out. They ran the track down for me. I had never heard it before. They ran me down the track. I put the solo down. I picked my guitar, put it back in the case. And Kevin's like, "Where the fuck are you going, dude? What are you doing?" I was like, I said, "I got to go back to Philly. I have a thing." He was like, "You can't hang out and have a drink?" And I was like, "Nah, man, it's like an hour and a half drive."
Uh-huh.
And then he said, "Well, do you have time to do another song?" So I was like, "Yeah, of course." So I pulled my guitar back out. They ran me down another song. I did a solo on it. So I ended up getting to record 2 songs with them. And then they offered me a slot in the band.
Wow.
And I guess through Kevin and Morgan talking, Morgan was a pretty big catalyst for it. And me and Morgan, when I had been there working that day on those songs, me and him were just on a string.
Nice.
We just worked together so well. Like, we're just very...
Chemistry.
I didn't know that, but we just, worked together with creatively, we clicked.
Right,
And
right.
I guess after I had left, which I didn't come to find out until after I had gotten a job in Candlebox, Morgan was like, "If you don't hire that guy in Candlebox, I'm going to find a gig for him, because he needs to be in a band that's out and running." So
Yeah.
Kevin called me maybe it was only a couple weeks, really,
Right.
and was like, "We want you to be in Le Projet, and do you want to play guitar for Candlebox?" And
Wow, how about it?
And yeah, man. So that was it. That's how it happened.
And that's how it happened. And you've been in the band for how long now? Is it like
6 years now.
okay, 6 years.
Already.
I had that wrong. I thought you were in there a lot longer than that, but still, 6 years. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and it's gone by like a shot. Yeah, like 2014, I did that session. He offered me that gig, right at the end of the year, beginning of the next of 2015, I think. And then
Nice.
it was hit the ground running. I was at the time I was doing some, like, I'm a hired gun, man. So
Yep.
if somebody needed me to go out and do some session work or some
Yep.
touring work, that's what I was doing. So at the time I was playing slide guitar for Greg Allman's son.
Nice.
And I was in my glory there, because the Allman Brothers were and still are a massive influence on my playing, especially Dwayne Allman and Warren Haynes.
Right.
So
Yeah.
and I got to spend some time with Warren Haynes on the road when I was young, like 19, 20.
Wow.
So that's where I learned how to play slide.
Very cool.
Yeah, the majority of my session work is from like slide guitar and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I told Kevin, I was like, I signed on to do this run with Greg's son Michael, I said, I don't want to burn them. I said, and Kevin was like, when can you start? I was like, the tour ends this date. I just need to get home, do some laundry and repack, and I could be out whenever you need me. So that's how it started.
That's amazing. You know what? We're going to talk some more about your amazing journey with Candlebox in just a minute, man.
And someday we could take our time to brush the leaves aside so you can reach us. Hey, but you left me far behind. Now, yeah. Didn't mean to treat you so bad, but I did it anyway. Now stand by me.
All right, this is Marky Z. I'm back with Brian Quinn again. What an amazing story so far, Brian. Oh, my God, man. These are things, and I've known you for a long time, 25 plus years or more, and seen you in all these different bands. As a matter of fact, all those bands I've seen you in except for Candlebox, the only band I've ever seen yet. But, wow, amazing. I want to forge a little bit forward in this, taking off with the Candlebox, where you're at right now. I know the pandemic, the scandemic, it's whatever, it's not stopping you, and that's great. It hasn't stopped me and many other ones, and thank God for that. If anything, it's brought a lot of musicians closer, as we just talked about earlier. What I want to talk about is what's on the horizon for you with Candlebox. It seems like you've got a really bright future with these guys. They really like you. Your chemistry with these guys are on the money, and I really think you're a great fit for them guys. Yeah.
Oh, right on, man. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I love the gig. I love everybody I'm working with. Like I mentioned earlier, being a hired gun, man, I was just bouncing around from tour to tour, whoever needed me to play, and I was going basically where the money was, so that and obviously I wanted to play. It wasn't just about the money.
Right.
It's never been about that, because I wouldn't even be doing it if that was the case, right?
We know that.
Yeah. But I got to a point in my career where I could make some decent money going out and doing the touring. So,
nice.
I landed with Candlebox, and I love these guys so much, man. Like, we really do. We're like a band of brothers. We get along so well, and
that's
it's
awesome.
a lot of ball busting. Like we we truly enjoy each other's company, and it's rare to find that, because I've done some other tours and filled in with other bands where they didn't get along. They hated each other. I didn't even want to be there, but they were paying me, so I was like, all right, I'll be there. I'll be here.
You'll deal with it.
Yeah, deal with it, man.
Yeah.
But it makes it when you're stuck on a rolling tube with a bunch of people and they're not getting along. That sucks,
Yeah.
But when I was with, I landed with Candlebox, and we all get along great, and I love those guys to death, and we all do a lot for one another, even outside of the band. So. I landed with them, and I love the gig. As far as what's going on, I'm already 2 records deep with them. I have a studio record and a live record out. Our first record I did was in 2016 called Disappearing in Airports.
Yep.
With them. Then we did Disappearing Live, which was a live album that came out in 2017.
Very cool.
And then I was living out in LA for a couple months last fall, right around this time. We wrote and cut a new record. We wrote 14 songs in like 3 days, and then went in and cut them.
Nice. Very nice, yeah.
Yeah, the album's done. The album's in the can. It's finished. We just released the first single that we co-wrote with Chris Cornell's brother Peter.
Wow.
He's a very dear friend of mine, and it's funny, because Peter and I had toured together right before Foster Child had gotten signed. Pete had a band called Black Market Radio that were fantastic.
Nice. Killer
band, had all great musicians in that. And we had toured together, and then Foster Child got signed, and I think they went up. They were doing well for themselves for a while, but I think Pete just got a little burned out with the industry, and he took a break from music. Then later on, years later, I found out that him and Kevin, because they're all Seattle guys.
Yeah.
That him and Kevin, and they knew all the Alice in Chains guys, and I knew some of the Alice in Chains guys, and it was just one big thing that we all knew one another. So it was just great synergy with everybody. You know what I mean? Just like that serendipity that happens, and. So Pete ended up co-writing our first single,
Okay.
That's off the new record. We have a new record. We're not planning on releasing it until we can tour it, obviously.
Of course.
Uh,
Yeah.
But I don't know what's going to happen. But we've been doing like pandemic cover songs, like a lot of artists have been doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have a bunch that we've done already. We already put out For What It's Worth by Buffalo Springfield. That's kind of out there floating in the
Nice.
internet world, and we have a couple more treats. It's just cover songs of bands that we loved, and we didn't worry about genre. I mean, there's punk songs, there's rock songs, there's pop songs. So
Yeah.
we're just kind of doing that and plugging away. I've been doing a lot of writing myself, so I'm just kind of sitting back and waiting for the world to right itself and get back out on the road and do what I love and do what I know.
Right. Well, Brian, let's touch on that for a minute. Let's go back to the concerts you've played with Candlebox. And what would you say if we were to talk about one of your most memorable shows that you had an opportunity to play with Candlebox? I mean, you probably had many. Which would be one that really stands out for you? That was like, wow, this is ultimate. I'm on the stage with these guys. I can't believe, that kind of a memory and that kind of moment,
Yeah, man. Well, there's two massive standouts. Like my very first show I did with them I did in Lake Charles, Louisiana, at the La Berge Casino. They had like this massive outdoor thing back behind the casino, like a huge pool.
Nice.
And then beyond the pool was just a massive field.
Wow.
That was my very first show, and I remember it was like I want to say it was like maybe a Friday night, I think it was a Friday night. I had done a solo acoustic gig at the Bridgeport Rib House, and it's like a bar gig or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was a good crowd, like 40 people, 50 people.
Sure.
And on Friday night, I flew to Louisiana on Thursday, and then Friday night I got on stage, and there was like 18,000 people at this show.
Well, that's awesome, man.
Like, I remember walking off stage, I was like, oh my God.
It's what I'm talking about, right?
Like I don't know, what fell out of me after I got done playing that show, it was like, it was just the craziest feeling. So I'll always remember that. That was...
Wow. And that was the
like
first
nothing
show?
I've ever felt in my life.
The
It
first
was like
show?
nothing I've ever felt in my life, what happened after that show that night.
Wow.
And just looking out at that many people and just being on, that national stage. And then the other one, we played in 2016, I think it was, or 20. I can't remember the exact date. It may have been 2016 or maybe 17.
Right.
We have a very big market and a very big following in South America.
Nice.
So we went to. This was our second or third time playing in Santiago, Chile.
Okay.
And we played Lollapalooza in Santiago, Chile down there. And in Europe and in South America, their festivals they're massive, man. It's hundreds of thousands of people. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like here, it's like 40 or 50,000 people, 60,000, which is a lot of people. But down there, it's over double that. It's crazy. So we played Lollapalooza in Santiago, Chile, and it was just people to the horizon, as far as you can see.
Wow.
And they, like PAs and television screens just stacked and stacked and stacked, going as far back as you can see.
Awesome.
So that was pretty memorable doing that show. And we were on that with like Queens of the Stone Age and Snoop Dogg and oh my God, everybody. It was just everybody on it. And like the artist area that they had, there was several artist areas, but our artist area, like our next door neighbors were Queens of the Stone Age and Snoop Dogg and I mean just these massive acts. But everybody hung out in like the same courtyard. Snoop Dogg's out there smoking steamrollers and had his whole posse there, man. It was awesome. Such a great hang, man.
That's great.
So,
I like Snoop Dogg, man. That guy's funny. Wow, that's amazing, Brian. Seriously, what an amazing experience, and you deserve every bit of it. I know, like I said, you're one of the working, and Brian, my partner, would agree with me. You're one of the hardest working musicians I know in the area, tri-state area. For years, I've known you, and you deserve every bit of the success you have, and that's why you are where you are, because you never stopped, you never quit, you kept going.
Yeah, there's no
That's what it
substitute
takes.
for hard work, man. You just got to put your head down and keep pushing forward, no matter what it throws at you. Because as you know,
Yes.
it's not the most forgiving industry.
No, absolutely not. But I'll tell you what, I want to thank you, Brian, for coming to the Rockin' House.
Thanks, brother.
Me and Brock, dude, are so happy to have you because, you know, you're also a real good friend as well. But, you know, we really appreciate you coming and taking time out to come to the Rockin' House. So I'd like to say from Brian and myself, Marky Z, thank you for coming to the show. Hope to have you again. I'm out.
Thank you.